did it. So we come into these lifetimes with a bunch of, karma energy that we have to release. And we say, okay, I'm going to take on this much. But when we're out of the physical body, we don't realize, in spirit, we're like, that's nothing. But once we get in, we're like, it's a lot.
Hello, family. Welcome back to the Explore the Extraordinary podcast. My name's Betty, and today I'm joined by Leora. And Leora is a spiritual expert in trauma and recovery. She's also a Reiki master, a past life regressionist, and just a beautiful human being. Leora and I have already collaborated on some stuff with IANDS in the past. I'll put a link to the video of Leora's presentation in the liner notes of this episode. And just an amazing, incredible person. We were able to do a past life regression together, and it was so transformative for me. Not only past life, but future life, y'all. So if you want to check out Leora, her link's in the liner notes. It was really, really cool. And yeah, I'm super excited for your willingness to serve our community in this way today. So I'm going to toss it right over to you.
Thank you, Betty. Thank you for having me on your show. And you're an exceptional person. And I want to have you on my show. I do a show on Ethereal Network called The Work of Warriors. And it's about people that that are warriors, that have gone through hell and back and survived and overcome and help other people. So I want to have you on my show as well, because you've had a really transformative life as well. And I think all of the light workers that are on the planet at this time, we've come in to experience that, so we can help, raise the vibration of our planet and morph into a more higher spiritual understanding, I guess.
I love that. So yeah, let's get into some of your story, whatever you feel called to share about today.
Well, since I've been a little girl, I have been, I guess psychic is the word. I would get visions and, hear voices, and I could read people's futures. And at one point, my mother had me, doing all of her friends, and I used just a regular playing deck, because I didn't know what modality to use at that age. But I would get, visions like this: your daughter's going to get pregnant, or she's going to get married, or this or this or that. So at a real young age, I was reading people's energy, and I was downloading information about them. And then, as I started to develop and everything, went through a very traumatic life, all kinds of trauma that you can imagine. On the ACEs test, which is a test they give for children that have been abused, I scored 10 out of 10. And theoretically, I should have been on the street doing drugs or whatever. But for some reason, I was able to get through it. And like we all do, anybody that has had trauma, we all learn how to overcome it, whichever path you take. And then, we get to where we are. And at one point in my life, I wasn't fulfilled, and I started going into the metaphysical, and I shifted a lot, and it got to the point where, I was doing really well and got married. And then, I put all the spiritualism on the back burner. But then I started to become really unhappy and not feeling fulfilled. And I went to the path of spirituality again. And I went to a psychic fair with my daughter, and I thought, this will be fun. Let's do this. And so I got a healing from, the shaman, and didn't think much of it, and came home, and things were really bad. I had a horrible marriage. I had a son with severe autism and bipolar, so it was a really rough time, and I was trying to make things work, and I didn't know how to. And one day I'm eating a tortilla chip, and out of my mouth comes this wolf, and went, and I thought, oh my God, what is that? And I thought, I'm losing my mind. And so I ate another tortilla chip with some guacamole, and sure enough, the wolf comes out again. So I called my girlfriend, who was kind of spiritual too, and I said, what's going on? She was also a nurse. And she said, I think you need to get a CAT scan. And I'm like, well, okay. And I knew that wasn't it. So I called this shaman, and I said, what is this? I'm seeing this wolf come out. And he said, when the wolf comes to you, that they're inviting you to understand that you need to go on your path. And he said, are you on the path that you want to be? And I said, no. And so he said, well, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I'd like to be a healer. And that started the whole thing. And then from that point, I studied for a year with this shaman and opened up my eyes to everything. I started downloading information. I started seeing aliens around me. I started having alien visitation. And I started doing healings on people. And I was using that same technique that I did when I was young, where it would just channel through me. I would see pictures or visions. One lady I was healing came to me with a problem with her knee. And so as I'm doing the healing, I went to her knee and I saw a picture of her tripping over an ottoman. And so when we got done the healing, I always talk to people, tell them what I saw and everything. And I said, in the 70s, did you trip on an ottoman? She goes, oh my God, yes. I go, well, that's where, the problem with your knee came in. So things like that. And then one by one, I started to, get these callings to do these different things, channel. I channeled high vibrational beings from different dimensions. And then I went to see Brian Weiss in Pasadena and changed my life. I went into a past life and I'd had neck pain my whole life and went into a past life that he did for the whole audience. And I had my neck cut off in Roman times and my pain was immediately alleviated. So I was like, wow, that is amazing. I want to do that. So I went and studied with him in Omega in New York and learned how to become a past life regression therapist. And things went on from there. And I just, began to, elevate my spiritual being by having all of these experiences. And what people may not know is that when you are elevating your spiritualness, it's not it's a bumpy ride because you're up and down, but the only thing is different is you're going up like this, up and down. So you get to a level and then you go through trauma and you're releasing all of this energy, and we keep the energy from our past lives and this life. And it's like we carry this backpack of rocks that are these little pieces of energy. So we get sick from the energy that we've had. And interesting enough, I just went through as many experiences I had to go through, I just went through another experience where I had to release trauma, and I got really sick from something that happened in my early life. And so everybody on the planet has trauma, big T's, little T's. Some people don't even realize that they have trauma. And we're always in the process of releasing these energies from past life and from this life. So basically, that's kind of like the whole story of where I am now.
Thank you for sharing that. And thanks for talking about the fact that it's not linear. Like this healing process is kind of a loop to loop and all these scattered, twisted strings. So even somebody who's done so much work, you're talking about something very current, having to do more work. So can we maybe talk a little bit about that, about is the healing process like that for everybody? Does everybody have to revisit past trauma?
I think every day you are releasing trauma. Say, for example, there's a time in, all of a sudden you get depressed and you have no reason why you are depressed. You're releasing energy. Say you have a dream about something and either it's really radical or it's nice, you're releasing energy. There's many, many ways to release energy. And one thing that I have learned is that, we're on this course of always releasing energy. And we start out somewhere like a caveman, end up somewhere like Gandhi, and somewhere in the middle, we start to awaken to understand who we are. And we get these signposts. And I call them signposts because you kind of trip upon them and you're like, oh, wow. And it opens up an area for you. I had uh, uh, 2 years ago, well, 4 years ago, my son died. So I was pretty, traumatized by that. And I did a healing on him before he died. And so he was autistic. He couldn't speak, had just a beautiful mind and a wonderful kid, but he had stage 4 cirrhosis because he had to take pills for the bipolar. So anyhow, when he was in what do you call it? When he was in hospice, I did it in his room and home, and he was kind of out of it. And they said, do a healing on him. And so I did a healing on him. And when I do a healing on a person, I go around the body to different areas. And there's one area on the right-hand side where I touch the knee and the bottom of the foot, and I'll see where you are in your karmic journey. And Brandon was on top of the mountain. And so I see people, they're driving up the mountain, they're with family, they're by themselves. Sometimes they're out of the car, but they're at all different stages. And Brandon was on the top of the mountain and he was saying, I'm free, I'm free. So that was really cool. That was for him. He had come into this life to release this karmic energy, and that's how he did it. So we come into these lifetimes with a bunch of, karma energy that we have to release. And we say, okay, I'm going to take on this much. But when we're out of the physical body, we don't realize, in spirit, we're like, that's nothing. But once we get in, we're like, it's a lot. So anyhow, I was having a problem with him dying, and I had to sign a DNR, and I just couldn't get past 6 months. And I did this meditation, and he came to me and he's like, hi, Mom. And I'm like, where are you? And he was on this planet and it was all red and like clay. And I said, what are you doing? And he says, I'm on this planet. And he said, when we leave our physical body, and depending on the amount of trauma that we've had, the karmic trauma that we've had, we carry energy on our spirit, on our soul. So we go to these places to release the gravitational pull, number one, and some of the energy. And I said, okay. So anyhow, I said, I'm having a hard time getting over your passing. And he showed me this picture of this little boy with blonde hair. And he said, this was a lifetime where you killed me. And I'm like, oh my God. He goes, don't worry about it. He said, put your hand over your heart and put one hand up like this. And I did, and I could feel pain in my heart. And he was coming in through my hand, down into my heart, and he released that karmic energy of me killing him in some lifetime. And so the point being, is that we are constantly releasing energy. And sometimes, we're lucky enough to have a near-death experience. And my last near-death experience was 2 years ago. And after my son died 4 years ago, the 2 years after that, I found out the husband was cheating on me. So I was so stressed and so traumatized. And I found out that the trauma from my childhood, the abandonment, was connected to that. And I really had suicide ideation. I didn't want to be here anymore. And I was lucky enough to have a near-death experience, and I was hiking with my daughter and just totally distraught, couldn't get through this with everything that I teach, optimization of body, mind, spirit, thoughts, words, and actions. I couldn't get through the depression. So I get up to the top of the mountain and I'm just like, I gotta sit down. And so I sit down for a second and then I'm like, okay, everything's good. I go to get up and then I went out. And as soon as I left my body, I was like, I'm glad that life is over. And then in the background, I could hear this screaming. And the voice said to me, listen, if you go now, it's going to devastate your daughter. And I was in the process of planning her wedding and doing all of that and, marrying them and all that. So I went right back in my body. And so I knew, I guess I had a grand mal seizure, and that's what she was screaming about. But the next day, all of the trauma from my childhood that was connected to the husband leaving was gone. And I had a total different understanding of life, of the way it is, and understanding that everything is being released all the time. You don't want to go to the near-death experiences all the time, but you can do it through healings and you can do it through dreams. And it's just a long journey. And so I don't know if I even answered your question in that.
You did way more than answer my question. And every time I talk to you, I'm just so impressed with your mission. I'm so impressed with the life that you have and that you've you know, like just so gracefully you're able to talk about it. And I every time I hear you, I'm just absolutely blown away. I'm like your biggest fan. I
Oh,
think that you're so amazing. I really do. Warrior, like just being in that awareness. And I love the idea of reaching into more spiritual explanations for things. You know, like you just gave so many great examples. And you know what? You painted a picture of you in a past life that's way less than desirable. And but again, it's this like level of spiritual acceptance that radiates off of you, and it's just so empowering. And I'm so grateful to know you. So thanks for
oh,
letting
thank
me
you, Betty.
fangirl for a second. Thank you,
Thank you,
thank
Betty.
you. Really, truly though. And we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and maybe we can get into a little bit more. We were talking about ETs and stuff like that. So can we open up the conversation to that?
Sure. I love to do that. And I don't get to talk to people about this very much because, some people are like, yeah, okay, you're crazy. But one thing I wanted to say before we get into the ETs is that spirituality is not a religion. It's the understanding of the all that is. And the all that is based in science. It's all energy. So any energy, and there's doctors, Dr. Bessel, what's his name, and Dr. Gupta, we carry energy in our body, and that's why we get sick. So every action that happens in this life and other lives create some type of energy, and we store energy. So we're constantly releasing energy. So, but let's get to ETs. Yeah, I've had since I started my shaman training, I started having radical experiences with ETs. And I started in the beginning seeing like little purple dots in the corner of my bedroom at night, like 3 or 4 of them. And I'm like, what is that? And turn the light on, nothing's there. Then I started having these awakenings in the middle of the night. And about 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning, I would wake up and I would open my eyes and I would first start seeing this honeycomb, and this honeycomb would come down on me. And I didn't know what it was, but I would put my hand through the honeycomb and I could see my hand pixelated. And beyond the honeycomb was all black with stars. And so that started happening. So I was doing my shaman training at that point. And oh, and so what before that all started, there was one point when my teacher had me, he was doing a healing on me. And in this healing, I went back, or I went into this visionary kind of happening thing where I saw myself. First, I see these aliens, these grays looking down at me like 3 or 4 heads. And he's doing this healing on me, and I'm seeing these grays looking at me. And then the next thing, I see myself in a gelatinous form of myself on a steel bed in a spaceship. And they're looking at me, and I'm lit up like a Christmas tree, and they're all like busy looking over me. Well, I guess what had happened, and that was when I first started meditating too, when I started my shaman training. As soon as I started the shaman training, I began to awaken. And since I was a little girl, I had this crystal in my hand. I couldn't dig it out. The doctors saw that it was there. They tried to dig it out. They took x-rays, couldn't see anything. And then it would go away and embed itself. So that it was always there. The minute that I started meditating and having these visions of ETs, it went away. It was a tracking device. So anyhow, then, and when I got done with the meditation and my teacher's like, you wouldn't believe what I just saw. He saw the exact same thing. So we were experiencing simultaneously the same vision. Anyhow, so from that point, I started seeing the honeycomb, and it would come down closer and closer. And so I asked him, and he said, honeycombs are typically groups of spirits that are connected. That's what it looks like. Then it started to expand, and it would be these square blocks of hundreds of squares with these numbers and symbols constantly changing, and I'd try to, like memorize what it was, and it would shift on me. And so like a big block coming down on me. And so again, he said they're trying to give you information. One of my past lives in the past, I drowned under the water. I was under the water for 25 minutes. I left my body and I woke up under the water and my body was just like kind of hanging there. And I got this huge download of information, and those numbers were in that download. And then, after about 25 minutes, a voice said, your body can't maintain under the water anymore. So I went back up and went up to the boat. They finally found me. And Lynn K. Russell, who is an expert in near-death experiences, when I told her, I said, people don't believe I was under the water for 25 minutes. And she says, that's nothing. She says, I've documented cases where people have woken up in the morgue 48 hours later. So 25 minutes is nothing, Leora. So anyhow, I woke up, or I went back in the body and went back up to the boat. So then I started seeing these numbers in bed. Then they started shifting to like vines. And again, and so I would get up and walk to the bathroom, and I had this, they were all around me. And, I'd go back to bed, and then I'd do the thing, put my hand through it and see my hand pixelate. And at one point, really interesting, before or right in the beginning of COVID, and I would feel prickly, sometimes prickles like little electric shocks all over me. One time I asked them, I said, show me who you are. And they showed me, and there were hundreds of different types of extraterrestrials all around, things that had things on their nose. And I'm like, all right, that's enough. But right in the beginning of COVID, they came to me, and in the middle of the night, it was super strong. And I was at the foot of my bed, and I thought I was going to die. And it got so strong, the electrical currents. And they showed me a lab in China somewhere. I assumed it was China. I didn't know. And they said this virus was created. Do not take the vaccine. Do not take it. And we're telling you it was created. And then they said a bunch of other things. And I'm like, wow. So I didn't take the vaccine until a couple years later, or till a year later. I wanted to go to Italy, and I took the vaccine, and I got an electrical current through my eye. And now my one eye, I have in the cornea, you can see it looks like a black flash. And so my one eye, I have minimal vision, but they warned me not to take it. And they said that it was something that was man-made. Anyhow, that was one warning that I got. And so then they started, one night I go to bed and I'm dreaming, and always pleasant dreams when they come, and you don't know it's them, but I'm dreaming at a party and my eyes are closed. Somebody comes up behind me like this, and then I open my eyes, and all of a sudden the fingers turn human to long green, brown, gray fingers. And there were four of like with knuckles. And I realized that it wasn't, and I woke up and I got this worse pain in my head, like somebody had smashed me with a sledgehammer, and nobody was around. And sure enough, I had woken up during being put back. And another time before I went to bed, I laid in bed and I was just kind of thinking, something had gotten into my head about, where I lived on another planet. And I'll tell you about that. But all of a sudden the wall opened up, and it was all glass. And I could see all these plants outside. I was in this glass house, and it was my house. And the plants outside, they were all different, like from a different planet that I didn't recognize. But I felt so much at peace. And I heard a voice that they said, this is where you're from. So then I began to channel, and I channeled this huge, wonderful extraterrestrial named Urick. And he was from the planet Cesarius, where I was from. And I went to the planet. I mean, I've had all these different things that happen, but we all are seeded on Earth from different planets and from different extraterrestrial civilizations. So yeah, I went way off track, I think, Betty, but that's it.
I really love that. So can you tell me how do you confirm the situations that happen to you? Like, for instance, you were just talking about all these different alien civilizations. Have you found information that confirms what you are being downloaded with?
The only one that I could confirm was Arcturian. And there was an Arcturian woman that came to me, and I forget her name, but she had this beautiful, big purple blue head. And she came to me during a healing. And then I started channeling her, and I forget her name. It was like Gia or something to that effect, but she was Arcturian. She showed me the ship that they have that travels throughout the multiverse. And what they do is they're kind of the protectors of the multiverse. And I've not had anything that can confirm other than I other than being able to heal people and see visions, and also to do past life regressions on people where they were taken to their home planet and they recognized it immediately. So there's nothing physical that you can, I've had marks on my body. I had a moon-shaped mark that was there with 2 dots on it. I've had square shapes on my body, like I would wake up and I'd have these red marks. That's about it. And then the crystal in my hand, but that was young. But there's nothing concrete other than just my own experiences.
I love that. And you still have unwavering faith. And to me, that is the definition of spirituality, just having faith in our experiences and knowing that they're true. I'm wondering if, you mentioned something about your son, how he was autistic, and my nephew is autistic. And I'm wondering if you've ever been downloaded or if you have any beliefs around why there are so many people with autism right now.
Well, now neurodivergency is super huge. And what they told me a long time ago, like 10, 12 years ago, was that autism and neurodivergent is actually a tweak in the DNA that's preparing us for humanity to be like faster thinkers, quick thinkers, and it's getting us prepared to go to the point where we don't have to use our mouth to speak. We can speak through, just our brains. So we are being genetically upgraded to go to the point where the people that planted us are actually us in the future, right? Does that make sense? So the extraterrestrials that we think are foreign, they are us in the future. We are going on that course, but some of the reasons that Earth and other places like Earth were populated was to maintain the population of what we are, Earthlings and all the other planets, because we died out in the future. So there's many movies about that, where there was one, I forget the name, it was so cool, but in a teddy bear, the little girl had to cry to give her DNA to the teddy bear, and then they were able to recreate Earth again through that DNA. But the way we're going, if you look at what we're doing to the planet and how we're killing the planet and how we're poisoning the kids, we are definitely the nervous system is the most delicate system of all of our systems. And if you figure you're eating polluted food, you're breathing polluted air, you're taking in everything is polluted. So it's going to affect the nervous system. But at the same time that and our extraterrestrials are protecting us. They're not letting us get to a point where we're going to destroy ourselves or our Earth. But autism and neurodivergency is just, we have been downloaded, and I'm trying to think of the word, they've tweaked our DNA so that we're going into a phase where we think faster. We don't even have to even use the physical body, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that. So we're winding down. I want to know if we can maybe just chat about transmuting trauma a little bit. I feel like a lot of people who listen to near-death experience podcasts, they're looking for hope. Maybe they're feeling kind of hopeless or helpless. And so can you just give us a couple words about that?
Yeah. So everybody's had trauma, everybody on the planet, whether it's small trauma or large trauma. Some people don't even realize that they've had trauma. But what it is, we've all had trauma because we come in to grow. And I wrote a book called The Powers in You. And I focused on 6 points: optimization of the body, mind, spirit, thoughts, words, and actions. So at the time that I wrote the book, I thought that was the super equation to help shift, so that when you have optimization of your body, you're eating right, you're exercising, you're doing things to keep your body healthy. The same with the mind, you're limiting negative input, you're bringing in positive. The spiritual, you're meditating, you're connecting to your higher source, your thoughts, changing those when they're negative, your words, same thing, being grateful, and your actions, watching how you react. So changing and optimizing all of those things are a good start. But while we are releasing energy, we need to do things like get healings and have past life regressions and have hypnosis sessions, where when you go down to the subconscious, that's an area that you can't hit by yourself. I mean, you can in meditation, but you've got to really focus on it for a long period of time. We have to help ourselves release through the specialties of other people. I just had a hypnosis session to help release trauma after the mother died that was terribly abusive, and then having, the husband and all of that stuff. When she passed, I got sick. I got an autoimmune. So it meant that my body was taking on that leftover energy and making me sick. I did all the things that I talk about, optimization. I did it. And I kept myself, feeling really strong mentally, physically, and spiritually. But subconsciously, I was not able to get to that. So I had a hypnosis session. And this doctor, she helped me release this trauma. And every time I hit a point where there was pain or there was something, I could see a photograph of when that trauma happened and release it and release it. And it has helped me overcome this autoimmune. So that is just amazing. So we need to not only do what we can ourselves, but we need to reach out to get healings and to reach that subconscious, so that we can not only release what we're aware of, but what we're not aware of. And those are the things that make you sick. And people like Gabor Mate, they taught Kessel, he talks about it. So these doctors that are talking about trauma and how it affects the body, you've got to not only do the work yourself for all of those areas, body, mind, spirit, thoughts, words, and actions, but you need help and assistance getting to that subconscious, unless you can do it by yourself. But we're all here to release trauma, and those are the ways that you can do it.
Yeah, thank you for that. Healers need healers too. And I love that. Like this is it, you're not like elevated and think that you're just there's nothing else for you to do now. We need each other. I think that
Yeah.
was the original design of the human experience, was like this barter system. We're constantly healing and trading gifts with each other. And so I love that you're sharing about that. And I've really loved our conversation today. I just want to give you some space to see if there's anything else that you'd like to share to feel more complete.
Well, nothing. When you're talking about healers, almost every single healer comes from trauma. And, we go through it for multiple reasons: to release, our karmic energy, our lifetimes that, we're not all pure and loving and wonderful. And we've all had them. We've all been rapists, killers, and all of that. And the thing is, most healers have come from trauma, and they've done it for the reason of being able to help others and help humanity. And yeah, like Betty, you've gone through trauma and you're a healer. So it's just kind of, we're all in that state.
You as well. I'm so grateful for you. And all of your information will be in the liner notes of this episode so people can reach out to you and connect. And I'm super grateful for you. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Betty. Take care.